So our characters want things. What do you do when you want something? You make a plan on how to get it. If I wanted a cup of tea, I'll figure on going to the kitchen and making it. If you want to reconcile with a friend after falling out, maybe you plan on calling them and making a few points clear. Cool, so that's step one. Next, we put the plan into action. I go to the kitchen to make my tea. We call the friend, and then comes the critical part of this sort of basic unit, which is the plan fails. So I go to my kitchen to make tea. We're out of tea bags. My plan has failed. What do I do next? Make a new plan. I'll go to the store and buy tea bags. Or if I'm not telling you the most mundane story in the history of the world, I'll call my friend to patch things up. They take offense at something I say. We're still on the outs. I need a new plan. And so the cycle has started again, back to step one. I still want the same thing, tea or reconciliation. That stays constant, but I'm coming up with a new plan to get that thing. And so that repeats over and over. It's a cycle. So plan, put plan into action, plan fails. Failing is, oh, thanks, Richard. Man. Sorry, this chat is great. Failing is a critical part of the trifail cycle. So I want to take a closer look at that. 4 general categories of answer we can give to the question, did my character's plan succeed? And the most boring possible answer is yes. And that's why you only ever get to use it once, because that signifies the end of the story. Stories about characters trying to get what they want. As soon as they have it, we're done. And that's why we make it interesting by having an enormous reality gap that they need to bridge. So the path to yes has to seem impossible for this answer to be fun. So second answer is yes, but, which is a more interesting variation of yes, because it means yes, the characters do have some level of success, but they've screwed something else up, or they've uncovered an even bigger problem, or something else equally problematic. So yes, Bill and Ted have managed to recruit all their historical figures for their presentation, but now they've all escaped off into modern day California. Or yes, Sherlock Holmes has identified the killer, but he's accidentally alerted her to his suspicions, and now she's on the run. So while there is success, you're not taking your foot off the gas when it comes to widening the reality gap. Our third viable answer is no. No, they didn't succeed. It just didn't work out. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this because it makes widening the reality gap a little harder. It's a bit of a static move. The character bumps their head up against the wall and just has to move it in a new direction. Trying to think of successful deployment, it's usually a very small beat. Like I was a detective story that the protagonist is trying to get in contact with a witness and keeps hitting a brick wall. And they phone, there's no answer, or they get through and the witness shuts them down. But it's just like this mini beat that eventually brings us to one of our other answers. So lastly, we come to the answer no, and, which is the fun one, because not for your characters, but for you as writers. Because if you're not sadistically interested in torturing your characters, why are you here, guys? Anyway, this scenario, not only do your characters fail to achieve whatever it is they wanted, but they screw up the situation. Now they're really in trouble. Trouble is what keeps people reading. So not only does the detective not get through to the witness, but now they're being slapped with a harassment suit. Or no, they don't get through, and actually that is the killer, and now they know that they're in the detective's sights. So this is an opportunity to really crank the reality gap open very wide indeed. One additional thing I would like to say about failure is that it has consequences. And an issue with this formulation profile cycles that I've shown you so far is that it doesn't really leave any room for character moments that failure engenders, for the time people need to react and process. And it doesn't create room for those bits of life that aren't specifically about pursuing the goal. It just jumps straight from failure to the next plan. So everything becomes a slave to the character's desire. Everything is plot and forward motion. And that is great for some genres, but certainly not for all genres. So an alternate phrasing of the same idea I've been talking about, but that takes that emotional beat into consideration, is scene and sequel. Scene is pretty much the Trofell cycle as I've described to you. Plan, action, failure. Then the sequel is that breath that comes afterwards, that moment of pause where your characters look around and take stock of where they are and react before heading back into the fray. And that can be very useful both in terms of showing character and in terms of pacing. And now Okay, so in some respects, this slide is a wild overstatement. But in others, it is kind of true, because if you string together a bunch of try-fail cycles and wind in the reality gap each time, you will have a functioning story at the end of it. You might even have a great story, because greatness comes from a lot of places, and structure is only part of the equation.